Welcome to Macmillan Library's Spring 2021 Book Buzz, starring me, Talia Scherer, Amanda Roundtree, Emily Day, and Samantha Slavin. Yay! Get to know us. Here are all the various ways you can get in touch with us. We love hearing from you, so please reach out with any questions, concerns, virtual hugs. Here's how you can get Macmillan e-galleys. The instructions can also be found on our website. Yes, Days YA and Genre for All. Days YA. Be sure to check out our candid reviews of our YA titles at Days YA on our website. Do you love genre fiction, or are you ready to try something new? Check out Genre for All on the website for exclusive content, giveaways, recommendations, and more. All focused on fantasy, sci-fi, romance, and horror. And now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, the books. Dun dun dun! This is the blockbuster best-selling follow-up to The Silent Patient, I Can't Tell You Anything. Next slide, please. The Therapist by B.A. Paris, best-selling author of Behind Closed Doors, Library Reads Hall of Famer, and suspense genre queen. B.A. Paris is back with The Therapist. Alice and Leo throw a housewarming party to try to get to know their new neighbors after moving to an exclusive gated residence. When a mysterious man appears saying that a murder took place in their new home, Alice is obsessed with finding out the truth.
Somebody's Daughter by Ashley C. Ford. This is fourth memoir of coming of age as a poor Black girl and battling her body and her environment. For as long as she could remember, Ashley has put her father on a pedestal, but he's in prison and she doesn't know what he did to end up there. In her search for unconditional love, thanks to a fraught relationship with her mother and an absent father, Ashley begins dating a boy her mother hates. When the relationship turns sour, he assaults her. Still reeling from the rape, Ashley finds out why her father is in prison.
The Husbands by Chandler Baker. From the New York Times bestselling author of Whisper Network comes a novel that asks, to what lengths will a woman go for a little more help from her husband? After kids, many women face the paradox of the second shift, where they are delegated to take on so much more than their husbands. The Husbands has razor-sharp insights, page-turning plot, fantastically real characters, and the strong bond of female friendships. Baker's last novel, Whisper Network, was a bestseller and a Reese Witherspoon book club pick.
One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. New York Times bestselling author of Red, White, and Royal Blue, Casey McQuiston, puts a queer spin on Kate and Leopold in this sparkling new rom-com about love, New York City, and found family. August doesn't believe in psychics, or easily forged friendships, or finding the kind of love they make movies about. But then there's Jane. Beautiful, impossible Jane. All hard edges with a soft smile and swoopy hair, and saving August's day when she needed it the most. When August realizes her subway crush is impossible in more ways than one, namely displaced in time from the 1970s, she thinks it's maybe time to start believing.
Once There Were Wolves by Charlotte McConaughey. Migrations was a #1 indie next pick and set the stage for Charlotte McConaughey's newest novel about science and nature. Once There Were Wolves is about a scientist reintroducing wolves to the Scottish wild. It is ultimately a story about the healing power of nature, but also deals with domestic violence, depression, climate change, and conservation.
The Plot by Jean Hanff Korelitz. An MFA professor steals the plot of a dead student's manuscript and publishes it to international acclaim. At the height of his glorious new life, an email arrives, the first salvo in a terrifying anonymous campaign. You are a thief, it says. Author Korelitz's popular novel, You Should Have Known, was adapted by HBO and is now airing as The Undoing, starring Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant and Donald Sutherland.
Palace of the Drowned by Christine Mangan. From the bestselling author of Tangerine, which is currently being developed for film by George Clooney, Now comes a suspenseful and transporting literary thriller set in the glamorous mid-century Venice. A British novelist leaves her home following a public breakdown. She retreats to her friend's vacant palazzo and with the hopes of finding inspiration once again, and is befriended by a fan. Not only will this story have you second-guessing everything you previously thought, it is also filled with the historical backdrop of the catastrophic 1966 flooding.
Dear Miss Metropolitan by Carolyn Farrell. Award-winning short story author Carolyn Farrell's debut is inspired by the 2002-2003 kidnappings in Cleveland. 3 girls abducted and held captive for a decade. The novel explores grief and rage, crime and punishment, and includes documents, newspapers, excerpts from books, photographs, and interviews to piece together the full story. Hand this one to readers of the Topeka School and the Vanishing Half.
She Wouldn't Change a Thing by Sarah Adlaka. When 39-year-old Maria Forsman wakes up in her 16-year-old body, she doesn't know how she got there. All she does know is she has to get back to her home in Benville, Mississippi, to her job as a successful psychiatrist, and most importantly, to her husband, daughters, and unborn son. She Wouldn't Change a Thing features a high-concept twist on a perennial what-if scenario. A woman who has it all is given the chance to start over. But what if that's the last thing she wants? Hand this to readers of The Time Traveler's Wife, Una Out of Order, and The 2 Lives of Lydia Bird.
The Photographer by Mary Dixie Carter. Delta Dawn, a photographer for the children's parties of New York's elite, is used to moving unnoticed through their luxurious homes. When Delta is hired to take pictures of Natalie Straub's 11th birthday, she becomes obsessed with the family and will find any way to become a permanent part of the picture. For fans of Gone Girl and You, this is a story of envy and obsession.
How We Can Win, Race, History, and Changing the Money Game That's Rigged by Kimberly Jones. If you haven't seen political activist and former bookseller Kimberly Jones' viral video following the murder of George Floyd with the same name as the book, push it to the top of your to-do list. After receiving millions of views on YouTube and featured on many news outlets, Kimberly Jones expands upon her video to touch on her personal experience, observations, and ways to fight back. Kimberly Jones is not just a stunning public speaker, but also presents a message that she is passionate about. This timely breakdown of social injustice should be read by everyone, but especially readers of How to Be an Anti-Racist and When They Call You a Terrorist.
She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. In a famine-stricken village on a dusty yellow plain, 2 children are given 2 fates. A boy, greatness. A girl, nothingness. Powerful and poetic, beautiful and brutal, She Who Became the Sun is a bold reimagining of the rise of the founding emperor of the Ming Dynasty. We have done fabulously with Chinese authors like Liu Cixin and Asian-set fantasies like The Tiger's Daughter and The Poppy War. We've really cornered the market on queer fantasy and science fiction, and with the success of debut authors like Kay Arsenault Rivera, Arkady Martin, and Tamsin Muir, and more, show how well we publish speculative fiction with queer and LGBTQ themes. The Black-Tongue Thief by Christopher Buehlman. Author, comedian, and screenwriter Christopher Buehlman spends his days performing across the country at America's largest Renaissance fairs and has now created a wholly original fantasy adventure for fans of Gideon the Ninth and Kings of the Wild. A thief and a handmaiden to the goddess of death are forced into an epic journey where goblins hunger for human flesh and krakens hunt in dark waters to search for a lost queen.
Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon. This new novel from Solomon is a genre-bending work of Gothic fiction that wrestles with the tangled history of racism in America and the marginalization of society's undesirables. Vern, a hunted woman alone in the woods, gives birth to twins. But something is wrong with her own body. It's itching. It's stronger. It's not normal. Understand her body's metamorphosis, Vern must investigate the secluded religious compound from which she fled, and the violent history of dehumanization, medical experimentation, and genocide that produced it. Madam by Phoebe Wynne. For 150 years, high above rocky Scottish cliffs, Caldonbray Hall has sat untouched, a beacon of excellence in an old ancestral castle. A newly hired teacher confronts the secret circumstances surrounding the abrupt departure of her predecessor, and the school's traditional culture surrounding gender roles and education. A spellbinding debut for fans of Donna Tartt, Margaret Atwood, and Madeline Miller.
Ridgeline by Michael Punk, from the author of The Revenant, which was adapted into a feature film and finally won Leonardo DiCaprio his Oscar. In December 1866, tensions were rising in Wyoming between the Native American tribes who had lived on the land for generations and white settlers. Captain William J. Fetterman claimed that he could rid the area of Native American people with only a small army of 8 men, and he would, unless Crazy Horse would find a way to lure the army to their doom. Dark Roads by Chevy Stevens. Dark Roads will be Chevy Stevens' first novel in 4 years. We have sold over 1.2 million copies of Stevens' 6 novels in all formats. Chevy Stevens' novels have received phenomenal reviews from authors such as Gillian Flynn, William Landay, Karen Slaughter, and Lisa Gardner. Stephen King has twice tweeted about how much he loves Chevy Stevens' books. For decades, people have been warned about the Cold Creek Highway and the women who disappear on it. When Beth Chevalier arrives in Cold Creek to mourn the death of her sister on the highway, she decides to finally find out who murdered her. Hand this to readers of A Gathering of Secrets, and Whisper Network.
We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang. When 29-year-old Sunday Brennan wakes up in a Los Angeles hospital, bruised and battered after a drunk driving accident she caused, she swallows her pride and goes home to her family in New York. But it's not easy. She deserted them all and her high school sweetheart 5 years before with little explanation, and they've got questions. With themes of guilt, redemption, and love, you'll want to discuss this novel right away.
Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. We all love a smart feminist retelling of a classic story, and that is exactly what Ariadne is. A retelling of the Greek myth of Theseus and the Minotaur told from the perspective of Ariadne and her sister Phaedra. Jennifer Saint raises questions about free will, sisterhood, misogyny, all starring a fierce female lead and including cameos from many other famous Greek mythology characters. This will be great for readers of the Book of Longings and the Book of V.
Girl One by Sarah Flannery Murphy. Josephine Morrow is Girl One, the first of 9 miracle babies conceived without male DNA, raised on an experimental commune known as the Homestead. Years later, her mother goes missing and she joins forces with her sisters to face down those who want to eradicate their very existence. This is a riveting exploration of female power tucked away inside a twisty thriller with a dose of mystery and cults. Josie and the girls have latent supernatural abilities that only manifest and intensify when they band together. Girl One is perfect for fans of V.E. Schwab, Leigh Bardugo, and Charlie Jane Anders.
The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. What could be better than The Sixth Sense meets Stranger Things? Because that's what we get from the first book in the Edinburgh Nights series, The Library of the Dead. Ropa the Ghost Talker hunts down clues to find a missing child and the person who bewitched them. She'll need to call on Zimbabwean magic as well as her Scottish pragmatism to hunt down clues in Edinburgh. Filled with supernatural horror, danger, magic, secrets, fear, wonder, and dark discovery, this is an intelligent book for readers of all ages.
Yoga Pant Nation by Lori Gelman. The hilarious Jen Dixon class mom is back in her yoga pants to face a class bully, spin teacher training, and her son's 5th grade. Jen's family is just dramatic enough to be wildly entertaining, but down to earth enough to be utterly relatable.
Thief of Souls by Brian Klingborg. This is an amazing atmospheric series debut that opens with a brutal murder in a rural northern China village. Exiled Inspector Lu Fei is now on the hunt for a serial killer in this tiny town. This unique setting isn't typically seen in crime fiction, but has all the insight, thrills, and entertainment to hook readers. And I just want to add a plug for this book that is so good, and I haven't read a detective like this in so long.
Haven Point by Virginia Hume. Set over 7 decades, wars, births, deaths, and family, Haven Point showcases a changing America beginning in World War II and going all the way to the early 2000s. Tragedy strikes Haven Point, Maine in the summer of 1970, and the following generations search for the truth of what really happened. This poignant and transporting debut is perfect for fans of Ellen Hildebrand and Sarah Blake.
The Arbonaut by Meg Lohman. Welcome to the Indiana Jones of botany. Dr. Margaret Lohman revolutionized our understandings of the vibrant ecosystems above our heads. And this is her full story, starting with being the only girl at a science fair to becoming an international conservation leader and scientist. Everyone Knows Your Mother is a Witch by Rivka Gulchin. Following Rivka Gulchin's debut, Atmospheric Disturbances, the New Yorker 20 Under 40 author brings life to history in Everyone Knows Your Mother is a Witch. The story begins in 1618 Germany. Plague is spreading. The 30 Years' War has begun, and fear and suspicion are in the air throughout the Holy Roman Empire. In the small town of Leonberg, Katharina Kepler is accused of being a witch. Her scientist son, Johann Kepler, must turn his attention from the planets to the job of defending his mother. In a time when powerful figures seem to cry witch hunt at every public call for accountability, women continue to be unjustly put on trial in both their public and private lives, and a pandemic threatens the essence of our social bonds. For readers of My Year of Rest and Relaxation and Trust Exercise, this story draws on real historical documents and is infused with wit and humor.
Razorblade Tears by rising star Sean Cosby. A black father and a white father join forces on a crusade for revenge against the people who murdered their gay sons. This is a brilliant Own Voices novel. Cosby writes fast-paced, smart thrillers that explore race, poverty, and crime. Cosby is tackling the continuing disparity between whites and blacks in the South and the effects of white privilege, but also taking on homophobia in the African American community. A Peculiar Combination by Ashley Weaver. You may know Weaver as a fellow librarian or from her beloved Amory Ames series, but now she introduces us to Electra McDonnell. Electra McDonnell's family is in the business of thieving. When a burglary goes sideways, instead of being arrested, she's delivered to government official Major Ramsey and asked to steal Allied blueprints before they can be delivered to a German spy.
Too Good to Be Real by Melanie Johnson. Journalist Julia searches for the ultimate pitch to impress her boss when she stumbles upon a resort offering guests a chance to live out their romantic comedy dreams. Julia meets Luke, who is not so upfront about who he is and why he's there. Once the fantasy is over, can they have a relationship in the real world? In the vein of rom-com favorites, including Well Met and The Bromance Club, and while this is a swoon-worthy romance, we also get a fantastic female friendship and a beautiful bond between siblings. And I also just want to call out the super cute corgi on the cover. And that is all for our titles today. I hope you'll join us every Monday at 4 for Happy Half Hour. This is a weekly series where 4 of us will be talking about 4 upcoming adult and YA titles from Macmillan. You can register for upcoming episodes and view archived episodes on our website. And don't miss Macmillan Adult Library Marketing and Tor Forge for an ALA Midwinter pregame. This is happening Thursday, January 21st from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Crowdcast. It'll also be featuring special guest authors Romina Garber, Melissa Albert, Bethany C. Morris, Charlie Jane Andrews, Lily Minnan, River Solomon, TJ Clune, and Sarah Gailey. You can also register on the website. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you again soon.